So in Turkey, I did a lot of smoking and drinking and things like that. Our perimeter of our base was only a little over 2 miles, and I left that post a handful of times in the year I was there. But one of the things we had right on post and just right kitty corner from the barracks that I lived in was a bar. So me and pretty much every person on base spent quite a bit of time there because it was basically the main spot for any type of entertainment or any type of anything to do. Then I finished up in Fort Carson, Colorado, was my last assignment, and actually I kind of feel that I did my assignments in reverse order of how I really should have done if I were going to actually remain in the Army, because I did my easiest assignment first and it got progressively harder from there. Fort Carson seemed to be kind of like back to basic training a little bit, and pretty strict in a lot of different ways militarily. So, but I had already decided, probably from about the first day that I went into the Army, that I was done as soon as my 4 years were up, so it didn't really matter too much. But had my assignments gone in reverse, things may have very well gone differently with me, but God knew what He was doing. Came out of the Army basically a practicing atheist, though believing in Mormonism, of course. It was the only religion that ever had anything to do in my mind, because I was brought up believing it was the only true church, so all other churches were not even something to think about in my mind, because they were all just, not true, according to Mormonism. But I came out basically a practicing atheist in general. I was getting far away from any real concern in religion or God or things like that too much. And I learned that my best friend in high school was gay. I didn't have any clue of that until after I came out of the Army, but he revealed that to me when I came out. And at that point in my life, I didn't really care. I figured, well, that's fine. Just means he ain't interested in the girls that I may be interested in, because I had never been interested in guys. I always was interested in girls. But so I remained friends with him, and probably too good of friends, maybe in a lot of ways, because we got into an awful lot of trouble. I'd spend time with him and the girls and guys and whatever that he was hanging out with, and we'd do a lot of drinking on the weekends. And I think it was a point in my life where God was kind of starting to shake things up a little bit for me and trying to help me to see that there were only a couple of directions to take in life. But anyway, as time continued and I was out of the Army, I got a pretty good job working at OMG, which was a mill, a cobalt processing plant, and I was making pretty good money working there. And on the weekends, I started going to Hurricane, Utah, because I was working there in St. George, Utah. It had been St. George Mining and Hecla Mining and turned into OMG Americas. They bought them out. And while working there, I started going to Hurricane, which wasn't too far of a drive away, to go bowling to the bowling alley there, and met some friends that I kind of liked hanging out with there, and I'd go bowling every weekend and pay a lot of times for whatever friends I had to go bowling with me, and just hang out on the weekends, kind of hoping, I guess, to maybe run into a girl or something. Because I was very, very, very girl shy. I don't know why that is, but that's something that God did in my life from a young kid on. Even when I was a little kid, I really liked girls a lot and really was kind of looking to get married whenever I was old enough to do so. But I was very, very girl shy and afraid to talk to girls, really. I had some, I guess, negative experiences or whatever anytime I had tried to kind of hit on a girl or whatever, and it really made me shy. I got hanging out with friends there in Hurricane, and a couple of the friends there were really into a game called Dungeons and Dragons, which was a game that I kind of gotten interested into a little bit even earlier on in life, but hadn't really played it too dramatically. But I really got quite involved in playing that game with these friends in Hurricane 2 for a while. And in a course of time, one of the friends that I was hanging out with quite a bit, I learned that his mom was actually gay and was living with another woman who I had thought was his aunt, but learned later on that that wasn't the case. And as time went on, and I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons and bowling with these guys and things like that, and working at OMG making good money, I decided that I wanted to buy my own house. Because I just thought that was, something that people ought to do as they're getting older and living their own life. So I found a house that I was interested in, and around the same time, this guy whose mom was gay, he had had some trouble with her, and she kind of kicked him out of the house, and I thought, well, no big deal. I'll just let him move in with me, and I'll get a house. I'll have him for a roommate. He can maybe get a job and help me out a little bit with rent if he wants to. But I was making plenty of money. I wasn't too worried about it. And I knew I had an Army loan that I could get really easily for a house, so I looked into that and got into a home, which I lived in for the next couple of years or so, maybe a little less than 2 years. While I was in the home, this roommate that I had, he had different jobs from time to time that he kind of took, but he never really seemed to hold anything down too heavily, and helped me maybe a little bit during the time he was there with some rent, but not much at all. But I didn't really care. It was good to just have a friend anyway to share the house with. He had his room, I had mine, and he had girls and whatever over from time to time, and just another way to make friends and whatever. But as time went on, though, it was interesting because he had the Mormon missionaries over, which is kind of goofy. He had grown up, I guess, not LDS at all, I don't think, and he started having the Mormon missionaries come over and talk to him. And to me, this was a point in my life where I guess I had gotten far enough away from God for long enough, or any ideas of God, that I really kind of started to rethink things a little bit, and started to, I always knew there was a God, basically, but I had told myself that surely he's going to let everyone into heaven, basically, which biblically is not at all true. I've learned now, since, and God is very gracious, very merciful, very slow to anger, but hell is real, as I know now. But anyway, I started to look into Mormonism a little bit more again, thinking that I ought to get back closer to God and try and figure out what I needed to do to please this God that I knew was real, but just kind of thought was maybe a man like me who had been exalted and became a God like Mormonism teaches. I hadn't really fathomed a God like the God of the Bible. But I started going back to the Mormon church a little bit after he had had the missionaries come over, but it was around the same time that he actually moved out of the house. I don't remember why or whatever, but he had left and gone his own way, and I started going back to the Mormon church and figured maybe I could find a girl there or something that I'd get interested in or things like that. And I went for 4 weeks in a row and really kind of enjoyed it a little bit for the few weeks I went, to tell you the truth, and heard some interesting things that still stick with me a little bit to this day, because there were actually some messages that really related pretty good to the to the real Jesus Christ. And, of course, Mormons talk a lot about Jesus, but their Jesus is totally different than the one in the Bible, the one who has now gotten a hold of my life and saved me. So I went to the Mormon church, like I said, for 4 weeks. At that point, I started to realize if I go to church anymore, they're going to give me a calling, which is going to make sure that I got to keep coming back every week. And I was not sure that I wanted to be committed yet, that quickly, back into the Mormon church. I still believed it was true, of course. Thought it was the only true church on earth. But I wasn't ready to commit that quickly. To kind of keep this story going, the direction that it needs to go, I was very much a devoted Utah Jazz fan. I loved to watch every Jazz game that came on TV and things like that. Anyone that I could see, I wanted to see and did watch usually. And one night that I was going to be off work, there wasn't going to be a Jazz game on TV, but they were going to be playing. It was going to be on the radio. And I thought, well, I'm going to listen to it on the radio, because I was a big Jazz fan and I wanted to see the game. Or I wanted to hear the game and hear what went on. So I tuned into the radio to listen to this Jazz game. And it's kind of funny what happened here now, because I'm tuning into the radio to listen to a Jazz game. And of course, every radio, they've got their advertisements or whatever, and one advertisement that comes on this one night that I decide to listen to a Jazz game on the radio, which was very rare. I tried to watch them on TV all the time, but there weren't too many games on the radio that either that were on the radio or at least that I listened to on the radio. But this one night, they're doing an advertisement for what was called the Art Bell Talk Show. And I didn't really know at the time who Art Bell really was or what he usually did. I know now that usually he's on the topics of aliens, UFOs, different kind of strange things that make people think, but very much into kind of more occultish type of stuff. Aliens, UFOs, mind goofy stuff, whatever. But not this night. This night he wasn't going to be doing that. This night he was going to be talking to an ex-high school science teacher who was going to talk on the topic of creation, evolution, and dinosaurs. And I thought, whoa. Here's an ex-high school science teacher talking on the topic of creation, evolution, and dinosaurs. I have got to hear this. Because growing up as a kid, I was fascinated with dinosaurs and stuff too, and was into a show called The Land of the Lost when I was younger, which was about people relating with dinosaurs and dealing with dinosaurs and stuff. And then, of course, Jurassic Park came along, and my fascination just grew more and more, thinking, man, it'd be neat if we could ever get dinosaurs back again, But, of course, believing evolution, I didn't, I figured that dinosaurs must have lived millions and millions of years ago, and man hadn't lived with the dinosaurs, so. But I really wanted to hear what this guy had to say, because he's going to talk about creation, evolution, and dinosaurs, and I really wanted to know how an ex-high school science teacher would be talking on this topic. And I wanted to listen to this so much that I stayed up until 1 o'clock in the morning to begin listening to it. And I know I was not on a night schedule at the time. I was planning on being in bed probably around 9 or 10 o'clock that night. But this topic really fascinated me. So I stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning.